There are places in Canada that never make it onto postcards. And honestly, there's a reason. No influencers, no glossy travel shots, just warnings, cold fronts, and crime stats that make even lifelong Canadians say, yeah, maybe don't. Most videos love shouting, never move here. But here's the truth. It isn't that simple, and it's far more interesting. Some of these towns are dangerous. Some feel like nature is actively trying to delete you. And some are so isolated that your closest neighbor might be a moose or a blizzard. Today, we're diving into 10 Canadian towns you should think twice about. Not because they're unlivable, but because the challenges here hit harder than most newcomers ever expect. We're talking about cities where gang activity spills into suburban streets, towns where winter doesn't just arrive, it attacks, and remote communities where groceries cost more than your rent back home. And trust me, the deeper we go on this list, the more intense it gets. 10. Surrey, British Columbia. The suburb that feels like a battleground. Surrey looks harmless on a map. Tree-lined streets, malls, families, commuters heading to Vancouver. But the numbers tell a different story. A crime index of 64.7, a safety index barely above 35, and violent crime rising year after year. This isn't a quiet suburb with occasional trouble. It's a city where gang warfare spills into parking lots and residential neighborhoods, like it owns the place. Shootings over drug territory happen in broad daylight. Property crime is constant. Break-ins, car thefts, vandalism, even in areas that look wealthy and calm. Rapid population growth stretches police resources thin, and anonymity makes it easy for criminals to blend in. If you think Surrey is intense, number 9 proves that danger doesn't need skyscrapers, just cold, chaos, and a city stretched to its limits. 9. Winnipeg, Manitoba. Cold enough to hurt, dangerous enough to matter. Winnipeg is a city of contradictions, affordable homes, friendly people, and the highest violent crime rate in Canada, with 675 violent incidents per 100,000 residents and a homicide rate that rivals major U.S. cities. Winnipeg's danger isn't theoretical. It's daily life. A meth crisis fuels break-ins, assaults, and unpredictable street encounters. Some neighborhoods are so notorious that even lifelong residents avoid them after dark. And then there's the cold. The kind that doesn't just freeze your fingers, but becomes a survival threat if you're caught outside too long. Winnipeg has culture, history, and grit, but it also has risks that hit harder than newcomers expect. Winnipeg is rough, no question. But danger isn't always loud. Sometimes it hides behind mountains, beaches, and sunshine. Number 8 looks like paradise, until you actually live there. 8. Kelowna, British Columbia. A paradise with a shadow? Kelowna looks like a dream. Vineyards, beaches, mountains, sunshine. But beneath the beauty sits one of Canada's highest crime rates, a 62.3 crime index driven by theft, vandalism, and drug-related offenses. Tourism brings money, but it also brings a transient population that makes crime harder to track and easier to commit. Vacation homes get targeted. Cars disappear. Break-ins spike during peak season. And while housing prices rival Vancouver, the job market doesn't. Many newcomers arrive expecting small-town peace and instead find themselves dealing with big city problems without big city opportunities. Kelowna is stunning, but it's not the safe lakeside escape people imagine. Kelowna is beautiful, but beauty can be misleading. Because the next place? It's not crime you're fighting. It's the sky itself. 7. Prince Rupert, British Columbia, where the sun forgets to show up. Prince Rupert isn't dangerous because of crime. It's dangerous because of the sky. This is the rainiest, cloudiest city in all of Canada, with over 250 centimeters of rainfall and barely 1,230 hours of sunshine a year. That's less light than some Scandinavian winter towns. The constant dampness seeps into everything: homes, clothes, bones, moods. Mold grows fast. Metal rusts faster. And the endless gray isn't just depressing, it's clinically linked to higher rates of seasonal affective disorder. Add isolation, limited services, and a coastline that feels like the edge of the world, and you get a town where the weather doesn't just inconvenience you, it wears you down. Prince Rupert works for people who love storms and solitude. For everyone else, it's a slow, emotional drain. If endless rain sounds bad, wait until we head north, where darkness and cold team up like final boss enemies. 6. Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. Cold that doesn't care who you are. Yellowknife is beautiful. Northern lights, endless wilderness, a sky that looks like a screensaver. But beauty doesn't keep you warm at minus 40 degrees Celsius. Winters here are long, brutal, and dark. January averages minus 26 degrees Celsius, and that's before the wind decides to get involved. Groceries cost triple what you're used to. Many services require flights. And if your car breaks down outside town, you're not dealing with inconvenience, you're dealing with survival. The darkness stretches for months, and the cold is so intense it can freeze exposed skin in minutes. Yellowknife rewards people who come prepared. Government workers, miners, adventure seekers. But for most newcomers, the climate hits harder than expected. Yellowknife is brutal, but believe it or not, there's a place even colder, even more isolated, and even more expensive. Quick reality check. Imagine stepping outside for just 30 seconds and feeling your eyelashes freeze together. That's not exaggeration. That's a normal Tuesday in Yellowknife. 5. Iqaluit, Nunavut. The Arctic at full difficulty. Iqaluit isn't just cold, it's the definition of extreme. The average annual temperature is minus 12 degrees Celsius. Food prices are shocking. Think $8 bread and $12 milk. And there are no roads connecting the city to the rest of Canada. Everything arrives by plane or ship, and the costs reflect that. Housing shortages are severe. Mental health challenges are common. Winters are long, dark, and unforgiving. And if you're not used to Arctic life, the isolation hits fast. No quick road trips, no cheap flights, no easy escapes. Iqaluit works for Inuit residents, Arctic researchers, and highly motivated government employees. But for most people, this is a climate and cost-of-living gauntlet, unlike anywhere else in the country. If you think the cold is Canada's worst enemy, just wait, because now we're heading back south, where the danger comes from people, not weather. 4. Kamloops, British Columbia, where the heat burns and the cold bites. Kamloops looks like a calm interior BC city until you actually live there. Summers regularly blast past 40 degrees Celsius, turning the valley into a furnace. Winters swing the other way, dropping to minus 30 degrees Celsius. Add a visible homelessness crisis, rising crime, and an economy that struggles beyond healthcare and basic services, and the picture gets darker fast. Tourism helps, but not enough to stabilize the city. Wildfire smoke blankets the region for weeks. Jobs are limited, and the contrast between postcard landscapes and real-life challenges hits newcomers harder than expected. Kamloops works for outdoor lovers and retirees chasing cheaper housing. But for many, the extremes, weather, economy, and social issues, are too much. Kamloops is unstable. Heat, cold, smoke, crime. But the next city shows what happens when isolation and industry collide in the harshest way. But before we enter the top 3, here's something to keep in mind. Every city from this point on doesn't just have one major problem. It has several, all hitting at the same time. 3. Prince George, British Columbia, a northern hub with a heavy shadow. Prince George is the unofficial capital of northern BC, but it carries the weight of that title. The city depends heavily on forestry, and when the industry dips, everything dips with it. Crime rates are high, winters are long and punishing, and the air quality can turn harsh when mill emissions and wildfire smoke mix. Isolation adds another layer. Services exist, but options are limited. Costs rise the farther you get from the coast. And the city's transient population, students, resource workers, short-term residents, fuels instability. Prince George works for forestry workers, government employees, and hardcore outdoor enthusiasts. But for families seeking stability, it's a tough sell. Prince George is tough. But number 2? That's what it looks like when an entire region struggles to reinvent itself. 2. Greater Sudbury, Ontario, a mining giant with deep scars. Sudbury has history, a century of nickel mining that shaped the city and scarred the land. The environmental damage is slowly healing, but the legacy remains. High crime rates, economic dependence on a single industry, and a landscape that still feels marked by its past. The crime index sits at 62.3, matching some of Canada's most troubled cities. Winters are long. Isolation from major hubs adds cost and inconvenience. And when mining slows, the whole region feels it. Sudbury works for mining professionals, healthcare workers, and people who love northern wilderness. But for newcomers expecting southern Ontario comfort, it's a shock. Sudbury is scarred by industry, by crime, by climate. But number one, that's where every challenge hits at once. 1. Regina, Saskatchewan, where every challenge hits at once. Regina isn't the coldest city in Canada. It's not the most dangerous. It's not the most isolated. But it's one of the few places where all three collide at the same time. Violent crime is elevated. Winters regularly plunge to minus 40 degrees Celsius. Summers bring mosquitoes thick enough to feel like weather events. The economy leans heavily on government, agriculture, and potash, industries that don't always offer growth for newcomers. And despite being a provincial capital, the cultural scene feels limited, pushing many young people to leave for bigger cities. Regina works for government employees and people who genuinely love prairie life. But for most newcomers, the combination of climate, crime, and limited opportunity makes it the toughest place on this list. Regina isn't the coldest. It's not the most dangerous. It's not the most isolated. But it's one of the few places where all three collide, hard. So that's the reality behind these 10 Canadian towns. Places where cold, crime, or isolation shape daily life more than most newcomers expect. They're not uninhabitable, but they demand something from you. Resilience, preparation, and a clear understanding of what you're trading comfort for. And yet, people stay. People build lives. Because home isn't numbers on a chart. It's what you're willing to endure and what you get in return. If you want Postcard Canada, you know where to go. But if you wander into the places on this list, make sure you're ready for the version of Canada that tests you, not the one that poses for photos.